Kyrie Irving in this game. Let's go back to the Mavs-Rockets game. Kyrie Irving in this game scored 2 points, right? In the first, or 5 points in the first half. 5 points. He was 2 of 7, and the Mavs still had a 21-point lead at the half, and so you knew Luka was killing at that point. And this thing that Kyrie has been doing is in the beginning of the third. I called it at the beginning of the third. It didn't happen. It ended up being the beginning of the fourth. The beginning of one of the second half quarters, Kyrie will go on a run and just like, all right, I just got to make a bunch of shots right here. I'm calling my own number. I'm doing this. Like I'm calling my number here, and I'm gonna start like making a bunch of plays right here. 6 of 9 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3. Hit the technical free throw from Fred VanVleet's tech. 4 assists, 15 points for Kyrie in the fourth quarter. His ability to just like start on a dime basically and create these runs has been so helpful because that helped push the Mavs forward. And I think in the past, without a Kyrie Irving, this game becomes like the Rockets come back in this game in the past, sure. I think. Yeah. The Rockets come back and maybe because they got it within 16, right? Or something like that. And I think they would have just kept chipping away and chipping away and chipping away at it. And the Mavs in the past maybe lose a game like this, even with the incredible Luka shooting game. But Kyrie kept it out of hand and made it so that it was an easy like coast to the win Mavs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like this is what coast to the Mavs win. You were there.
Coast to the Mavs coast to win. I don't know what I was trying to say.
Everybody understood what you meant. See, honestly, nobody would have even called you out if you just power through it, right? And I think some of that is what Kyrie ends up giving you in a way. It's like an opportunity to power through it, right? You have not, as you mentioned, right? Like the Rockets did not give up in this game. They just were outmatched. Yeah. Because there were points where if Luka was not on the floor, like you gave teams an opportunity to get runs. Now you go, hey, now Kyrie is there and he has the type of game that's like kind of schoolyard in that way that works in that situation. They really have found maybe the best instance of what I could imagine of you go, I go basketball, right? Like those guys can exist and they found a level of comfort. But at the same time, this game started with okay, Luka, you go. And then once you're done, and we've seen this in, like, as you mentioned, third or fourth quarters, Kyrie's like, okay, now I go. And he has a level of patience and then wherewithal when that time comes to do that. And that is damning, right? Like that is something that is incredibly tough to deal with because that is another elite scorer in this league. And he can get to whatever he wants, whenever he wants. And so like, that's just an impossible task to deal with. 2 of those, whether you know which one is happening or at a particular time or not, it's still an impossible task to deal with, especially when the dudes around them are making shots and you can't just load up on them.
And we've seen that it's not just Luka and Kyrie as the only ways to score on this team either, because we've seen them put a ton of points on the board in the paint. We've seen them, hit a bunch of threes like they did in this game and spray out for a bunch of threes for a bunch of guys too. And so like when you have those options plus Kyrie that can do this, like it makes it so that you have so many options in front of you. All right, we're going to push this. All right, we're going to push this. We're going to push this area of the game. And Kyrie just has figured out when exactly to call his number at the beginning of these quarters in the second half after Luka usually calls his number at the beginning of the game. And it's like, I'm going to just go out there and score a bunch of points, see what the defense gives me, see if they try to adjust. And if they try to adjust, then we'll adjust our offense and do this. And then Kyrie comes in and like after all the adjustments have happened from the other team, all right, we're adjusting to Luka. And Kyrie's like, hey, adjust to me too now.
Right. It's a hell of a curveball, right? It's a hell of an off speed in a way, an off speed that goes really fast as well, right? Like, but like the idea is just like, this is not a one note situation. We know that at these levels of sports, you cannot be one note. And you have added multiple notes that Luka Doncic can get to his own. Kyrie can get to his own. And then if you want to do that, and those guys are doing a great job getting it to your bigs who operate in an entirely different way. All right. And at a different point in time, you might need threes. And it really did feel like it functioned in that way where you could probably break this game up into like 3 distinct sections where different portions of the offense carried it, whether it was Luka, Kyrie, or your others, as some folks will call them, knocking down shots. And that's the beauty of it is once a team starts getting a figure on, all right, we might be figuring out how we can play it this way. Well, what happens when PJ Washington's knocking down threes and Dante Exum is knocking down threes? What happens when Kyrie is taking the Kyrie shot that you have defended well, but he just puts it over top of you and gets the softest touch, right? And that's what makes this difficult is that you now have multiple ways to attack. And we've talked about this time and time again. And even the best teams are going to, at the very least, have to take time to figure those things out. And once you get a guy like Luka Doncic who's put you in that type of lead, now they're playing against you and the clock. And now that's what it felt like this Rockets game was.